Good morning, everyone. I would like to call the meeting to order and acknowledge that we are in Treaty 1 territory, the home and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Innu, and Dakota peoples, and in the national homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation in Treaty 3 territory. My name is Carrie Linklater. I am your chairperson this morning, and I am joined on the panel by Ms. Michelle Duncan and Ms. Diane Knight via Zoom. From the assessment department, we have Mr. Kem Wong, and our administrative personnel this morning is Mr. Jaswinder Kumar. We will be hearing applications for revision of the assessment roll in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application, and we will limit discussion to those matters. The statements that are made at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. Be advised that comparison of assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the board. The board is appointed annually by City Council and is independent of it and the city administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to the Court of King's Bench if the matter pertains to the application of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with the board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the points of appeal with your property to be addressed with each applicant following swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony followed by questions that the applicant may have, and then the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all of the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today. The session will close after all the applications have been heard, and the board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You will receive the board's decision by registered mail as soon as possible. And as information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will be part of the public record. This morning, we will be hearing items 1 through 9 on the docket. And Mr. Kumar, would you please affirm the assessor and the applicant?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Assessor, please state your full name.
Kem Wong.
Thank you. Do you affirm that the evidence you are about to give is stating the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Madam Applicant, please state your full name.
Karen Cates.
Thank you. Do you affirm that the evidence you are about to give is stating the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, Ms. Cates and Mr. Wong. Good morning. I believe we are going to start off with 115 Niagara. Mr. Wong, whenever you are ready.
Okay, the subject property, the file number is 22-1531. The roll number is 080-209-34000. The address is 115 Niagara Road. And this valuation is for the 2023 assessment year. The assessed value is $13,357,000. This is a residential apartment block. It's 10 stories high. It was built in 1977, and it has 98 suites with 126 outdoor parking stalls. On page 3 is a picture of the subject property with its location. It's located near St. Anne's and Fermor. On page 4 are some pictures of the subject property. On page 5 is our income valuation summary. We use average rents of $1,171 to get a potential income of $1,349,000. We use the 3.2% vacancy to get an effective gross income of $1,306,000. And we use the 46% expense ratio to get a net operating income of $701,000. I capped at 5.25%. We have an estimated market value of $13,357,000. On page 6 are some rent comparables, showing that the rents we've used are in line with what's in the market. On page 7 is a summary of the income and expenses submitted by the owner. You can see in 2020, their income was about $1,477,000, but that included some, I guess, unusual income that we don't normally include in calculating their operating income. So we removed items such as interest and miscellaneous income amount of $108,000, which was zero in 2019. So we felt it was appropriate to remove it. But their income for 2020 is $1,364,000. Their expenses are $837,000, but that included some items which we wouldn't include in their calculating their operating expenses, such as appeal fees of $36,000. And as you can see, in the previous year is $530. And we also removed major repair and maintenance, which are capital in nature. And you can see in 2010 and 2012 that there was no major repair and maintenance amounts. So removing the appeal fees and the major repair and maintenance, their 2020 operating expenses are about $652,000, and their resulting net operating income is $712,000. You'll notice at the bottom of the expense ratios for 2020 is about 47%, and that's in line with what it was in 2010 and 2012. So to stabilize their income, I used their 2020 income of $1,364,000, and their expenses from 2019 and 2020 at $670,000, resulting in a net operating income of $694,000. This is very close to what the model is estimated at $701,000. So their stabilized net operating income supports the model's net operating income. On page 8 is information on how we derived our cap rates. Majority of the cap rates falling between 4.8 and 5.6%. On page 9 are some cap rate sales that range from 3.6% to 5.74%. You can see the sale of 700 St. Mary's at 3.6%. Altus has indicated that it was intended for renovation, but as it turns out, the extent of the renovation ended up being common area painting and carpeting, and so we believe that the 3.6% is a valid cap rate. On page 11 to 14 are the income statements supplied by the owner. So this property, I guess, is there are some renovations happening, and it appears that these renovations, they appear to be ongoing. But with regards to the current valuation, the model rent and cap rate are supported by the market, and the model's net operating income is supported by their stabilized actual net operating income. So I ask that you maintain the assessed value at $13,357,000.
Thank you, Mr. Wong. Is it possible for you to turn up your mic? You're just a little quiet in here.
If I speak like this, is it better?
It is. Can you try it up at our end?
Is this better?
We're just turning the volume up.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a bit better. Yes.
Okay, how about this?
Yeah, I think it's just better if you're closer to your mic too.
Okay, I think I'll just sort of speak like this.
Okay.
It might be the best option that we have.
Excuse me, do you know how to turn it up on the Zoom portion? Because you can turn up your speaker and your microphone separately. If you go into the audio settings, you can adjust your speaker and your microphone, each of them separately.
Yeah, I've sort of, I don't know if it's this room or if it's this computer, but I've kind of looked into it, and our microphone is my microphone is maxed out. So I think I'm just gonna have to kind of hold this microphone closer to me, and hopefully we can get through this.
Sure, that's fine. Thank you, Mr. Wong. Questions, Ms. Gates?
Yes, thank you. So if we look at your income value summary on page 5, are all of those inputs model derived?
I believe they are.
And for your income and expense summary on page 7, so would you agree in taking a look at their expenses to create the chart that the property runs fairly high expenses?
If you include their major repair and maintenance, for 2020, their regular repair and maintenance was $1,600, and their major repair and maintenance was probably about an additional $1,500. So that kind of puts it at well over $3,000 repair and maintenance per unit. And typically, from what I've seen in appraisals and from my own experience, the repair and maintenance amounts, normal repair and maintenance amounts per unit are about $750 to $2,000 approximately. So taking out the major repair and maintenance, it sort of leaves their regular repair and maintenance at $1,600 per unit, which seems to be in line with market.
Okay, so just touching then on that major repair and maintenance, did you take a look at what items made up that total category?
Some of it, yes.
But would you agree that items like flooring and appliance replacement are fairly standard R&M items for apartments?
I guess it depends on the situation, but typically speaking, I'm not sure if they are, because they are flooring and appliances, they are long lasting in nature. And so say if you replaced a stove this year, you wouldn't be replacing a stove next year. Yeah, I mean, it really depends on the situation, but I would say for me, typically speaking, capital flooring and appliances, flooring replacement and appliances, I would say they typically fall in the capital category.
Okay. So if we turn to your cap rate table on page 8, can you provide any information on the sales being used that are achieving the cap rate ranges shown, such as how many sales were included, what areas, ratio of high rise, low rise, etc.?
No, we haven't provided that information for this. These stats were provided by our modeling group, and but we didn't provide. We're not providing the sales that they use to calculate those percentiles.
Okay, and then for your cap rate sales on page 9, have you added workups as part of your direct evidence?
We have not provided the workups, but we've only provided the results of those workups.
Okay, thank you. That would conclude my questions for this property.
Thank you. Ms. Duncan, any questions to the assessor?
Yeah, are there any permits or anything for maybe more of the bigger R&M items?
I am not sure if there are any permits. I would have to take a look at it. But if you indicate the pictures indicated on page 4, they do seem to indicate that they are renovating the property, and there are some units that are renovated and some units that are not renovated. So it seems to indicate that they're sort of renovating on a regular basis or maybe on a turnover basis.
Right, but there's no obviously major ones that would have even warranted a permit then based on what you just said. Is that safe to say?
I unfortunately, I guess I don't have any permits handy with me right now. But sometimes I've seen properties that have been renovated which don't have any permits, but those renovations, they do result in increased rents for the property typically, and so sometimes this type of work is done and there's no associated permit with it sometimes, and sometimes there are permits that were taken out.
Okay, thank you. No other questions.
Thank you. Ms. Knight, questions?
Back to the permit issue. If it was structural, they would have to pull a permit, but just to do the kitchen replacement, they don't necessarily need a permit, correct?
I believe that to be the case, yes.
Okay. So on your presentation on pages 13 and 14, you've got 2012 and 2010 INEs. Is that correct?
Yes.
Just to show that the repair and maintenance, what it normally is that why you've got them there?
Pretty much that. I'm not sure. There were no major repair and maintenance figures, and it sort of seems like that's what they would normally operate at.
Okay. And then once the suite is renovated with the new kitchen, the new flooring, the new cupboards, then they can increase the rent. Is that correct?
I'm thinking that basically if they can show that the residential tenancies branch that they've put money into it and the amount of money that they're putting into it needs to be recouped, they will allow for above the guideline rent increases. And I think that's how they would increase the rents for this property.
Okay, and I had one more question. It's just slipped my mind right at the moment. Oh, yes. So if these had done all these renovations to the suites, would you then be changing the effective year eventually?
Yeah, if we inspected the property and we thought that an effective year was warranted, we would apply that. We would apply it to the subject property.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Wong, I'm going to assume you have not had a chance to inspect this property.
I have not inspected the property.
Do you have anything in your notes as to when it was last inspected?
I don't see anything in terms of the last time it was inspected.
Okay. So this property has been undergoing, it looks like from the pictures and given the age, some renovations, correct?
It appears so, yes.
Do you know if those renovations are taking place when the apartments go dark, or so you don't see any indication that this building is experiencing any vacancies? But I'm just wondering if you have any knowledge in regards to that.
They don't seem to be experiencing any vacancy issues. I mean, it seems to be in the maybe 1.5% range in terms of vacancy for their 2020 year. So I get the feeling that they're, like I said, it seems like some of the units are renovated and some aren't. So I get the feeling that they are potentially renovating as tenants turn over.
Okay. Do you know if they're offering any incentives?
I think they do offer based off of their 2020 income statement, they offer I would say significant discounts. Their rent potential is about $1,594,000, and they're offering discounts of $212,000.
Okay, thank you. Just my last question, in regards to your cap rate evidence. You spoke to the property at 700 St. Mary's. I think you were saying that previously it had been brought to the board by other agents saying that it was purchased for renovation purposes, but you're disputing that?
I guess I guess Altus had said that it was purchased for the intention of renovation, so it shouldn't be, it's not a valid cap rate sale. But I don't, in this particular case, apparently they purchased it, but they didn't end up doing any work to it afterwards. And so there was no renovation. But just because a property has an intent to renovate, it doesn't disqualify it in terms of a cap rate sale, because I guess in appraisal practice, those types of cap rates are utilized. So if a property has the potential for renovations, it could have a very it could have a cap rate on the very low end of the range.
Okay, so I guess I'm just wondering, did you contact the owners? How do you know that it wasn't renovated, and or what little renovation was done?
Oh, it was indicated in Altus's rebuttal cap rate rebuttal evidence in previous hearings.
Okay, so you had no direct contact with anybody at 700 St. Mary's then?
No.
All right, I thank you. That's all my questions. The floor is yours.
Thank you. So if you turn to page 2 of the brief, you'll see our requested assessment of $10,809,000. On page 4, we have our property description. So the subject property is located on Niagara Road, near its intersection with St. Anne's Road in the Alpine Place area of Winnipeg. The property is a 10-story apartment built in 1977 with an approximate land size of 1.6 acres. There are 96 units, which include 18 one-bedrooms and 78 two-bedrooms, and there are 126 outdoor parking stalls. So you'll see an aerial photograph of the parcel below that, and a Google map view on page 5 of the neighborhood. So our income approach starts on page 8. So for this property, we're disputing both NOI and cap rate. So in regards to the cap rate, we're disputing the assessor's cap rate of 5.25, and we're using a cap rate of 5.5 based on our cap rate study, which I'll briefly go through in a little bit. But as an overview of our cap rates, the first table shows our base cap rates based on effective year built, and it's assuming good quality properties in good locations. And the second table shows all of the factors that we consider on a site-specific basis for the property. So based on this specific property, we have not made any adjustments to our base cap rate of 5.5. Now, if you turn to page 10, we have our income and expense breakdown for the property. So we are using rents of $1,377,549. We have applied a market vacancy rate of 3.2%. So I note that the actual vacancy of the property is lower than the market vacancy, but it is our practice to use a market vacancy rate, as we're looking at it from the point of view of a prudent purchaser, and they would apply a reasonable market vacancy rate to the property to be conservative. So when accounting for the other forms of income that we have an effective gross income of $1,362,121. Now with the income, generally we stabilize both on the most recent year, but you'll notice for the miscellaneous income, we've taken an average of 2017 to 19 and excluded 2020 just because it's so irregular. And I can speak to what those charges are if the board wishes. So in terms of our expenses, this is where I guess we have the more so the issue with the assessor's workup. So for our expenses, we stabilize based on 3 years of expense data. In our remarks column, we note if something is an average or a percentage. If nothing is noted, it could be assumed that we're stabilizing based on the most recent year of the expense data. So our expenses include stabilized repair and maintenance of $2,365 per suite. Now, we provide a detailed repair and maintenance workup in our brief. So I'll just go through it for this property and then it will follow for the other properties. So if I can direct everyone to turn to page 37 of the brief. And I'll just go through that when everyone's on that page. Am I good to proceed on repair maintenance? Okay. Okay, so you'll see on page 37, we have 5 years of repair and maintenance data. So toward the bottom of the chart, you'll see we have the repair and maintenance total. Beneath that, we have the repair and maintenance less capital expenditures. So I guess disagreement on what would be deemed capital expenditures with the assessor's point of view. So when we're looking at capital expenditures, it's extraordinary repairs, roof, hot water tank, and other things of the like. And we also remove waste and snow because we stabilize waste and snow separately. So the bottom line shows the repair and maintenance per suite. Now, where we do our stabilizations would be toward the right-hand side of the sheet. So you'll notice that certain categories such as flooring replacement, appliance replacement, painting, and counters, cupboards, and carpentry, those have maximum values already in place. Those maximum values have been determined by having discussions with property managers and other knowledgeable players in the market to determine what reasonable amounts for those categories would be. And for the other categories, if we deem something to be an outlier, whether it's extremely high or extremely low, then we will also remove those. So in terms of this property, you'll see we've highlighted some of the items in red, showing that we've removed them, and that's how we get our $2,365 per suite. And I would suggest that things like flooring replacement and appliance replacement in the units is not a capital expenditure. This is standard R&M items that would be found in an apartment. So that would kind of cap off the discussion on expenses. Now, if I could just briefly go through our cap rate study, just to touch on that. So that's a separate document. It is.
Is that your rebuttal?
Not the rebuttal, just the cap rate study document. It's 162 pages. And I'll just briefly go through that once everyone has that open. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you turn to page 2 of our cap rate study, we start by looking at the city's cap rates. They have a wide range of cap rates from 3.85 to 7.4%, where most are stated to fall between the high 4 to mid 5 range. Now, we've also looked at the broker reports and what they suggest. So the important takeaways here from the market reports is that they're showing nothing lower than 5 for a low rise. And as well, they're showing low to no compression from last cycle. And we note that these cap rates may even be a bit low due to inclusion of other costs, such as land transfer tax, etc. Toward the bottom of page 2, we have some discussion surrounding interest rates. So the main idea is that the interest rates are only one component of the cap rate, and that the cap rate doesn't necessarily move one-to-one with the treasury yields. So on page 3, we also have some graphs showing the relationship between interest rate and cap rate. So these are national graphs, so we don't use them to derive our cap rates, but just to show the relationship that exists there. On page 4, we go through all of the factors that we consider for potential adjustment for different properties. Not all of them will be present for all properties, but just to touch on a couple that will come up on today's docket. In terms of amenities, more people are working from home, which is a trend that predated COVID. And so demand for amenities such as in-suite laundry, outdoor spaces, gyms have increased. As well, durability and quality of income will come up later on the docket in regards to social housing. We make adjustments for social housing because it is built for a more basic utility grade standard than market apartments. As well, these type of properties can have more deferred maintenance, so we do an adjustment there. And then That would probably cover it. The rest are pretty self-explanatory there in terms of the factors. On page 6, we have our cap rate sales. So the first 3 are going to be the most pertinent. These are from this cycle. We have included some older cap rates to show the evolution of where our position has come from, as well as to bolster our age categories. And on page 7, we have a graph showing a breakdown of sale price per suite stratified by effective year built. So just kind of another metric to look at in terms of the requested values and the assessments to see how they fall. And then the middle to bottom of page 7 shows the 2 charts that are present in all of our briefs. So that would be the body of the report. And then just to touch on what's in the appendices, page 8, Appendix A is a sampling of city cap rates, just to show that similar characteristic properties have different cap rates. So clearly there's some other level of adjustment just that we're not aware of. Page 14, Appendix B, that's just the backup of the market reports if you wanted to read the source data for the broker reports. Page 20 would be Appendix C, that's more discussion on the factors. So a couple pages to note in there. Page 22 is a City of Winnipeg economic report showing the idea of the pre-existing trends of more demand for amenities. And as well, page 37 and 38 show supply-demand relationship, how many new apartments are coming on stream. Page 43 is Appendix D. Those have all of our cap rate workups if you wanted to see the calculations for any of those. And page 145 has the sales data that we use for our sale price per suite chart. And then lastly, page 149 is Appendix F. It has some assessor rebuttal that was previously submitted. It is essentially cap rate workups that they've done on some of our cap rate sales. And the purpose for including it is just to show that there is a level of agreement among certain of the age categories in there. So I'll just wrap this up. I'll just go back to my main brief and I'll go just to page 10 of my main brief just to tie this all together. So our total expenses are $767,608. It gives us an NOI of $594,513. And with our 5.5% cap rate, we have an indicated value of $10,809,000, which works out to a value of $112,600 per unit. And then just a couple comments on the renovations. So I did reach out to the owner to see the status of the renovations. So they informed me that prior to 2019, it was common for some units to be partially renovated, but not completely renovated. So they're not exactly sure how to account for how many total units are renovation, just due to the degree of the partial. But what they did say is that after 2019, they determined that 20% of the units have been completely renovated. So the total amount of renovations would be higher, but they're unsure how to account for the level of the partial renovations. So on page 11, that would be, or sorry, page 12, that would be the start of my appendix. So I included some photos of the common area and the suites from their website. So you could see the different levels of upgrades in the units. As well, we have the city valuation and all of the financial statements that we've used. And so that would conclude my presentation for this property. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions, Mr. Wong?
Yes, on page 37.
Okay, just give me one moment. Okay.
Yes, is everyone there?
Mr. Wong, could I ask you to use your mic?
Sorry, sorry. Is everyone on page 37?
Yeah, if you'd like to proceed.
Okay. Just with regards to, I guess, the flooring replacement, where it goes from, say, 28,000 in 2016 to 20,000 in 2017, and then 8,000 in 2018. And also, I guess I was looking at the counters, cupboards, and carpentry at 77,000 for 2019 and 61,000 for 2020. I was just wondering for the counters at 77,000 and for 2019 and 61,000 in 2020. Would an accountant would they sort of claim that as capital from an accounting perspective?
I can't speak to an accounting perspective, as we're looking at it from our perspective of assessment and valuation. So in terms of what an accountant would do, I can't speak to that.
Okay. So you wouldn't be able to say whether an accountant or whether Canada Revenue Agency considers that capital?
I wouldn't comment on that, as neither of us are accountants or from Canada Revenue Agency as well. So this is how we do our valuations for multifamily.
Okay, yeah, it's just my understanding that long-lasting items that are long-lasting are considered capital by, I guess, CRA, and usually yeah, that would be my questions regarding that capital. But I was just wondering, with regards to your methodology on page 37 for calculating the repair and maintenance amounts, I was just wondering if you would use the same methodology if you were putting this property for sale rather than for assessment?
By putting it for sale, like, do you mean if I was somehow
selling the property?
These are the repair and maintenance data for 5 years. I would also say this is a knowledgeable property manager / owner. So if there was a more efficient way to do it, then they would be doing it. 2,400 a suite is possibly on the higher end of the spectrum, but it's not out of the realm of what we see. So no, I wouldn't do anything differently. And in fact, I think we've been quite reasonable in this by getting rid of a lot of those really high value elements.
Okay, so you're saying that you would use the same methodology if you were selling the property?
Yes, I see no issue with the methodology used, and I'm comfortable with it.
That's all my questions.
I thank you. Ms. Knight, questions?
Would you say that in a building, when you're doing capital expenses, that increases the value of the building, or would increase the cap rate when you're looking at decrease the cap rate when you're looking at valuing the building?
I would say in terms of capital expenditures, like investing in the roof, hot water tank, extraordinary repairs, such as items to the balconies, those are just kind of things to keep the building going and keep it in good condition. Given that our cap rates already consider good quality properties in good condition, I wouldn't make an adjustment to the cap rate in terms of capital investments into those capital expenditure items. But yeah, I would say it keeps the building in good working order, in good condition.
Okay, so then how about if I ask if capital expenditures then could potentially make the age of the building increase as their adjusted value? Effective date, pardon me.
So just to clarify the question, so are you saying the more they're investing into the property, that would then give it a newer effective year built, and then what effect would that have?
Right.
Yeah, if this property was given an effective age update, we would follow through with that in terms of our cap rate. But in terms of the building is in good condition, given its age and the fact that only 20% of the units have had complete renovation, I'm not sure that an effective age adjustment is warranted at this point. But yeah, if the effective age was updated, then we would reflect that in our cap rate.
So you had said the 20% was as of 2019, but you don't know what 2020 in the following year, how much they did.
Oh, sorry, just to clarify that point. So when I reached out to the owner and she looked at the list, she said since 2019. So kind of implying since 2019 to the current 20% of the units have
Oh,
been
okay,
renovated.
okay,
But I'm not entirely sure what their future plans are as well.
okay. And then when I'm looking at the HVAC, there's 2 years, 120,000, 123, but you did still use the average. You didn't use maximum per suite in that calculation, correct?
For the HVAC, yeah, I just used the average, because I felt 20,000, 23,000 kind of support that low 20s, and then 13, 12, 13. I don't feel 20,000 is too far off from those 13, 12,000. And additionally too, when we look at on a per suite basis as well, if that value makes sense, then we will apply that.
Okay. And then one last question, the counters, cupboards, and cabinetry. You're taking the $300 average times 77% of the 300 times the 98 suites to get that 28,000?
So essentially how we got the 28,000 is, so from the total 5-year average, which is 37,673, the
77% of that. Okay.
That. So kind of capturing that they're spending more on this category than what we're allowing in our analysis, but we want to capture that full 300 just based on spending more.
Okay, I got it now. Thank you.
Ms. Duncan, questions?
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. Just had one question. So it's just come up that 20% of these units have been updated since 2019.
Yeah. And
do they have plans to renovate the entire building?
I'm not sure. I didn't ask about future plans. I kind of asked about the state, but I wouldn't be surprised if they are continuing with the renovations, but I can't confirm at this point.
Okay. And so did the property manager speak to the condition of the suites that are not renovated?
I didn't ask regarding the condition of the suites that are not renovated, but I have included just a sampling of some of the photos that they still had on the website of the unrenovated units. So that would be kind of the most that I could speak to that at this point.
All right. I thank you. And it looks like you have, Mr. Wong, you have rebuttal to the Altus's cap rate study?
Yes.
Did you want to bring that up at this time?
I guess if the applicant has the applicant provided rebuttal for my brief?
Yes.
Yes. I know.
I mean, I guess if we were to start somewhere, we'd go there. But I'm fine with just sort of having it in evidence and not necessarily speaking to it because I guess we've both spoken about it before. So if you would like us to go through it, I think we could. Otherwise, you can. It is in your hands to review yourself.
All right. It's entirely up to you, but we can review it later. Thank you. We will then proceed to 275 St. Anne's Road. Mr. Wong, whenever you wish to proceed.
Okay. The file number is 22-1479. The roll number is 080-021-70400. The address is 275 St. Anne's Road, and the year in appeal is 2023. The assessed value is $6,513,000. This is a senior's home, but we're treating it as if it were a regular market apartment building. So we have it as a residential apartment block that's 6 stories high. It was built in 1975, and it has 96 units with 53 outdoor parking stalls. On page 3 is a picture of the subject property with its location. On page 4 is a little bit of information on the subject property, just indicating that it is a senior citizens rental. On page 5 is our income valuation summary. We use average rents of $689 to get a potential of $794,000. We used a 3.2% vacancy to get an effective gross income of $769,000. And we used a 55% expense ratio to get a net operating income of $338,000. Capped at 5.2%, we have an estimated market value of $6,513,000. On page 6 are some rent comparables showing that the rents we've used are, supported by the market. In this case, they're lower than market. On page 7 are CMHC market rents. The rent potential using CMHC market rents is $1,136,000, which is much higher than what the model is estimated at $794,000. And in the middle of page 7 are some expense comparables that range from 43 to 50%. And so this supports the model's expense ratio of 55.98%. On page 8 and 9 is information on how we derived our cap rates, with some cap rate sales that range from 3.6 to 5.74%. And on page 11 is the income statement supplied by the owner. On page 12 are the CMHC market rents chart. But because this is a seniors home, we are treating it as a below average apartment building, and the model rents are supported by the market as well as the expenses and the cap rate. So I ask that you maintain the assessed value at $6,513,000.
Thank you, Mr. Wong. Questions, Ms. Cates?
Yes, just a couple, thank you. So you said it was a seniors apartment. So would you agree that seniors housing tends to have certain limitations built in, such as small units or poor parking count, for example, in comparison to a market apartment?
I would say that can be the case, but I believe we've reflected those maybe potential deficiencies by having rents that are below the market and expenses that are at the higher end of the market range.
Okay, and you would also agree that these type of properties tend to be built to a more utility grade or basic standard as compared to market apartments?
I believe that can be the case.
Okay, thank you. That will conclude my new questions for this property.
Thank you. Ms. Duncan, questions?
Just the rent comparables. Was there ever any done closer to this type of usage, or it's just all general? I mean, the rents for this one is significantly lower than the rent comparables.
Yeah, these I tried to look for comparables that were, I guess, similarly large buildings, but also with a reasonable number of bachelor units. But the comparables that do come up are ones that have some more 3-bedroom or 2-bedroom units, sorry, and 3-bedroom units. So to kind of find exact comparables would be, I guess, fairly difficult. And I think these are, I guess, the closest that I could find. But as to give you more of an idea as well, the CMHC market rents sort of do give you an idea of what maybe an individual bachelor 1-bedroom or 2-bedroom might rent for in the area. So, and to sort of further support, I guess, what's on page 6.
Okay, no other questions.
Ms. Knight, questions?
Yeah, in regarding to your page 7, So when you're saying zone 10 Saint Vital, is there a specific for seniors housing or just all housing altogether? That's the potential rent.
This would include all, I guess, inventory in the St. Vital area. So if there are older buildings, it would include those. If there are newer buildings, it would include those. But I guess the subject property is a 1975 building, so I think it does fall kind of in the middle or the average of the different age categories.
Okay. And just one more question on that same page, those expense comparables. Now, the only one that I'm familiar with is Valhalla Drive, and I know that I'm pretty sure most of those on Valhalla Drive are the senior blocks, 55 and up. But what about the rest of those blocks?
Yeah, I believe all these blocks are just regular apartment buildings. The Gertrude would be in the more central part of Winnipeg, and as well as I guess Assiniboine Avenue, which would be kind of downtown.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then when you say this building is below average building and 5.2 cap rate, is that a normal thing that you would look at a 5.2 for a below average building?
I guess I was saying it was a low average in terms of like the rents that have been applied by the model are, I would say, below what the market would typically be, and so as well as the expenses. A normal expense rate might be in the maybe high 40s. In this particular case, the models apply to 56% expense ratio. So we've sort of treated it as below average in the sense that the model is applied lower than market rents and higher than market expenses, and the cap rate does not take that into consideration. It just I believe it's more like the age of the building. So
okay. So because you adjusted the other two, you're not adjusting the cap rate, is
yeah,
what you're saying.
Correct. I mean,
okay.
if you sort of make adjustments in like multiple areas, it could be tantamount to double and triple application or dipping. And so I believe that we've reflected this as a below average apartment building in the income and the expenses, and we've applied a regular cap rate.
Okay, thank you.
So, Mr. Wong, page 5 of your brief is model driven, correct?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. And so you're speaking to this building being below condition or being below average condition, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Did you inspect the building?
No, it's more from the standpoint that it's a senior's home.
Okay.
And it would be compared to a normal apartment. It might be below average compared to a normal apartment.
And page 6 of your rent comparables, are any of those senior homes?
No, those are all market apartments.
Okay. And the suite split on this building, there's 35 bachelor and 56 one bedroom. Would you not say if an investor was looking at this building, that would be not ideal split?
Yeah, well, like people are talking about, I guess, ideal and non-ideal splits. Like I'm not sure what a ideal split is. Could it potentially be less desirable in terms of there being more bachelor units? It could be, but I've seen apartment buildings with a higher number of bachelor units sell, I would say, fairly normally in my view. And it's not like the property sold for a extra low value because it was there were more bachelor units in it. So like I'm not sure what the perfect or suite mix would be, or how much of a consideration that is for a potential purchaser. I think they're just looking at what kind of a return they can get from it, and regardless of whether it's a bachelor or a one bedroom unit, they're probably just calculating the type of return that they can get from it.
Okay, so you do not agree then with the statement that 2 bedrooms are far more popular suite to rent?
It, I guess it could be depending on the area. But I've never seen, I guess I haven't seen any sort of information that might indicate, say a 2-bedroom, an apartment comprised of mostly 2 bedrooms sells for, I'm not sure how to quantify that type of a statement.
All right, I thank you. If you
Madam Chair, I have one more question. I'm sorry.
Yes, no, go ahead.
Do you have any pictures of the inside of this building anywhere?
I do not.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. If you'd like to proceed.
Thank you. So if you turn to page 2 of our brief, we have a requested assessment of $4,488,000. We have a property description on page 4. So the subject property is located on St. Anne's Road between its intersections with Niagara and Morrow in the Alpine Place area of Winnipeg. The property is a 6-story apartment built in 1975 with an approximate land area of 1.7 acres. The property has 96 units, which includes 35 bachelors, 56 1-bedrooms, and 5 2-bedrooms. And there are 52 outdoor parking stalls noted. So you'll see the aerial view and on the next page, the Google Map view. So if you turn to page 8, we have the overview of our income approach. So the property is described as seniors housing, social housing. So based on their rents being below market with those types of properties, we are going to use the city's rents that they have, which works out to $689.88 per suite per month. We use those because we understand they're a factor of CMHC market rents. So we think that value makes sense here. Additionally, with this type of property, it's not going to achieve a market level of vacancy given that the rents are so low. So we have applied a market vacancy of 3.2% as assessed in our valuation. Now, in terms of our expenses, what you'll see is that the expenses are on the higher end. So we have capped those expenses at a ratio of 65%. We made a judgment call with capping them at that rate, but we feel given the age of the property, 65% makes sense. And, you know, if we were looking at a much newer property, we might look to something more like 60%. So just some background on there. If you turn to page 9, we have the overview of our cap rate. So we are disputing the assessor's cap rate of 5.2%, and we're using a cap rate of 6% based on our cap rate study. So based on the age of the property, it has a base cap rate of 5.5%. And we make an adjustment for social housing. And as well, we make an adjustment for the issues of the property that derive from it being seniors housing. These are issues that are hard to cure, such as not only is it skewed toward small suites, so it's 95% bachelor and 1-bedroom and 5% 2-bedroom, but the suite sizes are also very small. We have bachelor units at 375 square feet, 1-bedrooms at 424 square feet, and 2-bedrooms at 567 square feet. Now, in terms of our adjustment for social housing, the way we look at these types of properties is we look at cap rates for market apartments and then make an adjustment upward based on the risk factors present with these type of properties. So those include the quality of construction, the age of the building, low income tenancy, and as well a declining neighborhood. Not all of those are present with all properties, and not all of those are present with this property. For this property, we've just made an adjustment for low income tenancy. So based on those two factors, we added a 0.5% adjustment to our cap rate for a cap rate of 6%, which we feel is well within reason. So if you go to page 11, we have our income and expense breakdown. So it just shows all of the inputs that we've used here. So as discussed, we're using the EGI, same as the city, of $769,310. The expenses are based on the actuals. The repair and maintenance is $889 a suite on the low end, but to be expected for this type of property. And in terms of the taxes, now just to touch on this for a moment, what we've looked at, since this is a 40S property, meaning they're school tax exempt, a future purchaser can't necessarily expect that same tax treatment to continue. So it is our practice for 40S properties to calculate the taxes as if it were a standard market apartment at class code 20. But as you'll see, we have capped the expenses in this case. So the specific inputs may not be as relevant, but just to show all of those inputs that we've looked at. So this gives us a net operating income of $269,259. And with our 6% cap rate, gives us an indicated value of $4,488,000 rounded, which works out to a value closer to $50,000 a unit, which does make sense in light of how many small units there are. And just to touch on a point that the assessor had made in his presentation, that since the rents are low, we can't also adjust the cap rate because that would be double counting. We disagree with that line of reasoning. The rents are low because it's the quality of the units, the basic finishes. That's like the rents are going to be low in that case, but the cap rate is what's looking at the actual risk of the property, and these type of hard to cure issues are captured in the cap rate. So our appendix would include the financial statements that we've looked at. As well, we have a breakdown of our repair and maintenance on page 31, a breakdown of the reserve expenditures on page 32, and that would conclude my presentation for this property. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions, Mr. Wong?
No questions.
Ms. Duncan, questions?
Have you seen the property?
I have not inspected the property, and I was not able to locate interior photos of the property.
Okay. So we don't know what they're like inside. Okay, good enough. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Knight, questions?
No, my question was going to be the pictures to show the lower quality, and that's been asked. So I think I'm good. Thank you.
I also have no questions. Did either of you have a wish for summation on the property?
No, thank you.
I'm good also. Thank you.
Great. We'll proceed to 61 Clayton Drive. And Mr. Wong, I understand you have offered a recommendation on this property.
I have offered a recommendation. I don't believe that the applicant is going to accept it just because it seems like we're a little bit apart on that. So I think we could probably just proceed.
Yes, I think.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Wong. If you would like to proceed.
The file number is 22-3149. The roll number is 080-027-65000. The address is 61 Clayton Drive, and the year in appeal is 2023. The assessed value is $4,093,000. This is a residential apartment block that's 3 stories high. It was built in 1966, and it has 36 suites with 36 outdoor parking stalls. On page 3 is a picture of the subject property with its location. On page 4 are some interior pictures of the subject property. On page 5 is our income valuation summary. We use average rents of $980 to get a potential income of $423,000. We use a 3.2% vacancy to get an effective gross income of $409,000. And we use a 48% expense ratio to get a net operating income of $212,000. And capped at 5.2%, we have an estimated market value of $4,093,000. On page 6 are some rent comparables showing that the rent reviews are in line with what's in the market. On page 7 is a summary of the income and expenses supplied by the owner. The repair and maintenance figures are for 2019 and 2020 about $2,200 2,187 for 2019 and 2,329 for 2020. Typically in appraisal, if the repair and maintenance figures or any other item falls outside of the market norms, they would make an adjustment to those line items. In this particular case, in my experience, the repair and maintenance norms are approximately $750 to $2,000, and in this case, they're falling at $2,200 and $2,300. So I'm making an adjustment to the repair and maintenance to be in line with market. And on the top of page 7 are some repair and maintenance comparables with an average repair and maintenance figure of 1,342. So I've applied that repair and maintenance figure to their 2019 and 2020 income. After making that adjustment, their estimated income would be using their 2020 income at $399,000 and averaging their adjusted expenses from 2019 and 2020 at $191,000. That gives a net operating income of $207,000. This supports the model's net operating income at $212,000, but it is a little bit lower. So I'm making a recommendation for a revised value based off of their lower net operating income and using the model cap rate of 5.2%. The revised value would be $3,997,000. So that's I guess that's how I calculated the revised value on my page 1. On page 8 and 9 is information on how we derived our cap rates with some cap rate sales that range from 3.6 to 5.74%. And the remainder of my brief is the income statements supplied by the owner. To conclude, the model rent and the cap rate are supported by the market, and the revised net operating income is supported by their actual net operating income after adjusting for their higher repair and maintenance. So I ask that you accept the revised value of $3,997,000.
Thank you. Questions, Ms. Gates?
Yes, thank you. So on your page 7, where you show your repair and maintenance chart, so would you agree there's a direct relationship for market apartments between the amount of money put into the property and then the amount of rents that they can achieve, like the level of rent?
I'm not sure if I've seen information to quantify that, but it's possible. I think it would be possible, yes.
Okay. So then would it not make sense if you're looking at their actual income to then look at the actual investments they make into the suites?
You could. You could do that. You could also look at it from the standpoint that their expenses could be a little bit higher because they're continuously, they're slowly but continuously improving the property. And so I guess after the property has been improved, I don't know if their expense levels would sustain that higher level. So yeah, I guess you could look at it in both those ways.
Okay, thank you. That would conclude my new questions for this property.
Thank you. Ms. Duncan, questions?
Just please confirm the NOI. Is it the same as the applicants here revised?
I do not know. I would have to check.
Sorry, I can't hear you.
My revised NOI is not the same as the applicant. The applicant has 195,000 and I have 207,000.
2007 even?
It's on my page 7, the exact number.
Okay, so 207,861.
Yes.
My only question. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Knight?
No, that was my question. The 207,861 at the 5.2 still, correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Wong, your brief is entirely model driven, correct? Well, other than you've made this adjustment, but
Yes, on page 5, I believe it is model.
okay. And you have included pictures, correct, on page 4 of the apartment?
Yes.
Okay. Do you take those from their website?
It's you can see the yes, it was from the internet, and you can see the link on the top of page 4.
Okay. So this obviously shows a renovated apartment, correct?
It appears to be. I'm not sure if it's a full renovation, but it is. I would say refreshed.
Somewhat. Interesting, there's no bathroom pictures, but anyway, would you, so you don't know the extent of the renovations in this property? You did not inspect it. You don't know if every suite is renovated, correct?
No, I do not.
Okay. And you would agree there's no amenities to this building?
I don't believe these type of apartments that are in this age category have amenities there. They're typically a 3-story walk-up and potentially laundry.
And there are no balconies, correct?
There are no balconies.
All right, thank you. That's all my questions. Ms. Cates, if you finish your brief.
Okay, thank you. So if you turn to page 2, you'll see our requested assessment of $3,560,000. On page 4, we have our property description. So the property is located on Clayton Drive at its intersection with Bonita Avenue in the Alpine Place neighborhood. The property is 2.5 stories and built in 1966. And the land area is approximately 30,000 square feet. There are 36 units, which includes 1 bachelor, 16 one-bedrooms, and 19 two-bedrooms. And there are 36 outdoor parking stalls noted. So you'll see the aerial view and the Google Map view. And on page 8, we have an overview of our income approach. So in terms of the NOI, I believe our difference is on the expenses with the assessor. And in terms of the cap rate, we are disputing the cap rate of 5.2% of the assessor. And we are using a cap rate of 5.5% based on our cap rate study. The base cap rate given the age is 5.5, and we've not made any adjustments to that. So, and 5.52 would be kind of mid-range cap rate for this type of apartment. So we feel that it is quite reasonable. So the rents that we've used are $410,000. Sorry, if you could turn to page 10 for our income and expense breakdown. So the rents that we've used are $410,734. We've applied a 3-year average vacancy to the property of 6.3%. And when accounting for the other forms of income, we get an effective gross income of $402,801. Our expenses include stabilized repair and maintenance at $1,789 per suite. That gives us total expenses of $206,988. We have a net operating income of $195,813, and with a 5.5% cap rate, gives us a value of $3,560,000 rounded, which works out to a value close to $100,000 a unit at around $99,000. So within the realm there. So our appendix starts on page 12, and I've included some interior photos from the property manager's website. These ones are unstaged, so you get a sense of the finishes. And then I've also included a more staged photo, I guess, on page 14. And then additionally in the brief starting on page 15, we have our city valuation any financial statements that we've looked at. And then for reference, our repair and maintenance breakdown would be found on page 21. And that would conclude my presentation for this property. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions, Mr. Wong?
I was just wondering if you know if they're slowly renovating this property.
I'm not sure in regard to the renovations. I didn't reach out to inquire about the renovations. But what I do know is that this property manager, they do invest money into the suites, and they are fairly consistent over time. But in terms of timeline of renovations, I'm not sure.
That's all my questions.
Thank you. Ms. Duncan, questions?
No questions, thank you.
Ms. Knight?
So the pictures of the interior, the ones with the white cabinets, brown tops, those are upgraded cabinets. The ones with the brown cabinets, beige tops are older cabinets, correct?
Yeah, it does look like, it looks like the photos on page 13 would be the more upgraded units. And these are the photos that they use on their Facebook page in terms of renting out the unit. So I would assume that, these would be the more recent upgraded photos.
So do you know what percentage of these suites are upgraded already?
I'm not sure the percentage of the suites that look like page 13.
Okay. And then when it comes to repair and maintenance, it looks like it on your page 21, it looks like they're constantly doing something, correct? Like the 1 year for appliance replacement was higher in 2017. The flooring replacements kind of been average. The cabinets and countertops, the 1 year 2018 was a little higher than the others, but otherwise it's, like you said, an ongoing maintenance repair or upgrade repair.
Yes, I think that would sum it up for this property. Yeah, they do invest money pretty continuously into the suites to keep them in good condition and to continue to achieve the maximum rents that they can.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Looking on your page 10, I'm just wondering, you've used 6.3 vacancy on this property as opposed to the city's 3.2. And is that your standard, or is that representing the age, or?
So essentially with the vacancy, we're always going to look to a market level vacancy, but if we see that the property is consistently running a higher than market level vacancy, then we're going to look to the 3-year average and see if that makes sense. So when we look at this property, 5.6, 6.3, so they're kind of continuously running above that kind of 3.2 range. So we have opted to use that, but I leave it to the board's discretion in terms of what they feel is an appropriate vacancy, but it's just the methodology that we've presented here.
All right, thank you. That's all my
Can I ask
questions.
a further question in regards to that?
Yes, go ahead.
So if you're continually upgrading, do you think that continual upgrades will continue year after year after year going forward for 10 years? Or do you think those upgrades stop at a certain time and then they start again? Because would that then not have something to do with why the vacancy is a little higher if they're continuing to do upgrades?
Well, in terms of, I guess, addressing that, if they're doing, I guess, complete renovations and overhaul, then there would be thought that that would then lead to lower repair and maintenance over time if they've done, if they're doing complete overhaul of the suites. But in terms of just looking at if they're just doing steady kind of repairs, steady kind of upgrades, then that could be a bit of a different school of thought. And we do see that the repair and maintenance is fairly stable over time. So, I mean, with the vacancy, I know this comes up a bit. This is, I guess I've chosen to go with the 3-year average for this one, but I could see the argument that, they are doing renovations potentially. So maybe more of a lower market vacancy would be suitable. So I'll leave that with you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Do either parties have a wish for a summation on this property?
No, thank you.
I could also thank you.
Okay. And I think at this time, we're going to take a 5-minute break. I would like to call this meeting back to order. We are going to proceed to 14 Bonita Avenue. And Mr. Wong, whenever you are ready.
Okay, the file number is 22-3148. The roll number is 080-812-23165. The address is 14 Bonita Avenue. The roll year is 2023, and the assessed value is $4,681,000. This is a residential apartment block that's 2 stories high. It was built in 1963, and it has 44 units with 42 outdoor parking stalls. On page 3 is a picture of the subject property with its location. On page 4 are some interior pictures of the subject property. On page 5 is our income valuation summary. We use average rents of $980 to get a potential income of $517,000. We use a 3.2% vacancy to get an effective gross income of $500,000. And we used a 50% expense ratio to get a net operating income of $248,000. Capped at 5.3%, we have an estimated market value of $4,681,000. On page 6 are some rent comparables showing that the rents we've used are in line with what's in the market. On page 7 is a summary of the income and expenses supplied by the owner. Once again, their repair and maintenance was outside of what we feel are market norms. So we made an adjustment to have more market levels of repair and maintenance. And in doing that, our estimated net operating income is $268,000. This is about $20,000 higher than what the model is at $248,000. So we feel that their actual net operating income supports the model's net operating income. On page 8 and 9 is information on how we derived our cap rates with some cap rate sales that range from 3.6 to 5.74%. The last page is the income statement supplied by the owner. In conclusion, the model rent and cap rate are supported by the market, and the model's net operating income is supported by their actual net operating income after you adjust for their higher repair and maintenance. I ask that you maintain the assessed value at $4,681,000.
I thank you. Questions?
I have no new questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Duncan, any questions?
No questions, thank you.
And Ms. Knight?
No questions, thank you.
Okay. Again, your brief is model driven. Mr. Wong?
Yes, I believe it is.
Right. Sorry, did you prepare this brief?
I did.
Okay, thank you. And again, there's no amenities in this building, correct? It's a
I don't believe there would be any amenities. Like I said, just in buildings like this, I typically might see a laundry. I would probably see a laundry room, but outside of that, typically no.
all right. Thank you.
Thank you. So if you turn to page 2 of the brief, you'll see our requested assessment of $4,377,000. As well, I have some exterior photos of the property from some different angles. On page 5, we have our property description. So the subject property is located on Bonita Avenue between its intersections with St. Anne's Road and Clayton Drive in the Alpine Place area. The property consists of 2.5-story apartments built in 1963, and the land size is approximately 39,000 square feet. There are 44 units, which includes 20 one-bedrooms and 24 two-bedrooms, and there are 41 outdoor parking stalls noted. So we have an aerial photo of the parcel and a Google map view on page 6. On page 9, we have the overview of our income approach. So we are disputing the assessor's cap rate of 5.3%. And we're using a cap rate of 5.5% based on our cap rate study. The base cap rate based on the age would be 5.5, and we've not made any adjustments further to that. Our income approach can be found on page 10. So we have rents of $528,076. We've used the 3-year average vacancy, given that it is consistently higher than a market level. And when accounting for the other forms of income, we have an effective gross income of $511,256. Our expenses include stabilized repair and maintenance at $2,135 per unit, which gives us total expenses of $270,530. We have a net operating income of $240,726, and with our 5.5% cap rate, gives us our indicated value of $4,378,000 rounded, which works out to approximately $100,000 per unit. So our appendix starts on page 12, and I have some interior photos of the units. I would note that these are staged marketing photos, but if you kind of put aside the furniture, it gives you a sense of the finishes. And then page 15, we have city value. Following from that, we have all the financial statements that we've looked at. And then our stabilized repair and maintenance can be found on page 21. And that would conclude my presentation for this property.
Thank you. Questions, Mr. Wong?
No questions.
Ms. Duncan, questions?
No questions, thank you.
Right.
Just looking for the repair and maintenance breakdown. Just 2 seconds. No questions, thank you.
So just one question in regards to some of these renovations. Did you happen to speak to the property manager in regards to the percentage of what's been done in the building?
I have not.
All right. No further questions. Do either of you have a wish for a summation on this property?
No, thank you.
As well, thank you.
All right. We'll proceed to 309 Enfield Crescent. Mr. Wong, whenever you're ready to proceed.
Okay. The subject property is 309 Enfield Crescent. The file number is 22-1914. The roll number is 060-815-16000. The roll year is 2023, and the assessed value is $947,000. This is a residential apartment block that's 2 stories high. It was built.
Excuse me, Mr. Wong, but you have a recommendation on this property, correct?
Correct.
So if you could just speak to the recommendation first.
Sure. The recommendation is for the value to be revised to $821,000. And if you go to page 7. The value calculation is using their 2020 income, but using the model's 45.66% expense ratio and the model's cap rate at 5%. So the calculation for the revised value is right there, and it's $821,000. And if you go to page 2.
Sorry, I'm just going to ask the applicant if you wish to accept the recommendation.
Yeah, we feel the recommendation, the value is reasonable. So we are in agreement with the value.
All right. Mr. Wong, if you just want to finish with your brief.
Sure. I think I've read the particulars on the subject property. So I'm not sure if I need to say anything else.
All right. Thank you. Panel, Ms. Duncan, did you have any questions in regards to this?
No questions, thank you.
Right?
No questions, thanks.
So, Mr. Wong, you're revising your value, your quantum to 821,000
Yes.
and changing your NOI to 41,034.
Yes.
And you are accepting that value.
Yes.
Thank you. We will proceed then to 354 Enfield Crescent. Mr. Wong, whenever you wish to proceed.
The subject property is 354 Enfield Crescent. The file number is 22-1551. The roll number is 060-804-45000. The roll year is 2023, and the assessed value is 1,469,000. This is a residential apartment block that's 2 stories high. It was built in 1964, and it has 16 suites with 15 outdoor parking stalls. On page 3 is a picture of the subject property with its location. On page 4 is our income valuation summary. We use average rents of $785 to get a potential income of $150,000. We use a 2% vacancy to get an effective gross income of $147,000. And we use the 49% expense ratio to get a net operating income of $74,000. Capped at 5.1%, we have an estimated market value of $1,469,000. On page 5 are some rent comparables showing that the rents we've used are in line with what's in the market. On page 6 is a summary of the income and expenses submitted by the owner. We have 2017 and 2020. Unfortunately, we don't have the 2018 or 19 mailer. So in looking at the 2017 and 2020 mailer, we've stabilized their net operating income to be $71,000. This supports the model's net operating income at $74,000, albeit slightly lower. On page 7 and 8 is information on how we derived our cap rates, with some cap rate sales that range from 3.6 to 5.74%. The remainder of my brief are the income statements, the 2017 and 20 income statements. So to conclude, the model rent and cap rate are supported by the market, and the model's net operating income is supported by the actual net operating income. So I ask that you maintain the assessed value at $1,469,000.
I thank you. Questions?
Yes, thank you. So on your cap rate table on page 7, the broker cap rates are used as further support for the assessment department cap rates. Is that correct?
They're there to show what other organizations indicate the cap rate to be.
But it does say in your brief, further supported by comparison. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Okay. And would you agree that they suggest nothing lower than 5% for low rise, with CBRE suggesting even a higher baseline than that?
Yes, that's what they're suggesting. They're also suggesting, I guess, the highest is 6%, but we have cap rates that are say 6.9%. So their information is a little bit different, or maybe substantially different than ours, but they are, in our view, supportive and in line.
Okay. So given that this property is at a 5.1 cap rate, that would be on the low end of that range. Is that correct?
On the low end of maybe the Colliers or the CBRE, but it would be kind of in the middle range of our 20th and 80th percentile.
Okay. And you would agree that this property is wood frame construction?
Yes.
And would you agree that wood frame is generally not as high quality of a construction material?
I would say so in my experience. But on the same note, that I'm not sure. I've seen too much of a difference in terms of how much a wood frame sells for versus a concrete building.
Okay. Would you agree this property has no real amenities to speak of?
I would say that usually buildings, the 3-story walk-ups of this age category, they typically don't have anything more than a laundry room.
Okay. And I see you listed a link in your brief for the website. Were you able to also take a look at the interior photos provided?
I am not sure. I'm not sure.
Okay, that would conclude my questions for this property. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Duncan, any questions?
No questions, thank you.
Ms. Knight?
Why the question slipped my mind. If I come back to it, I'll let you know, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I'm glad to hear that, Ms. Knight. It's Friday.
Gotta write these down when I think about them sometime.
So, Mr. Wong, you did not inspect this property?
No.
Okay. Do you have any information in your notes as to when it was last inspected?
I don't know when it was last inspected.
Okay, so you cannot then speak to the condition of this building, correct?
No.
I thank you. That's all my questions. If you would like to proceed with your brief.
Thank you.
Oh, I did figure out my question, Madam Chair. Sorry.
Here we go.
Go ahead.
The Collier, CBRE, and Cushman Wakefield, are they using the exact sale price, or are they using the calculating the NOI with the land transfer tax and lawyer's fees?
I couldn't say for sure. All I know is that from my experience with the Collier's agent, he seems to indicate that they do include land transfer and some other fees, which would, I guess, in terms of calculating their cap rate.
Okay, thank you.
If you would like to proceed.
Okay, if you turn to page 2 of the brief, you'll see our requested assessment of $1,189,000. If you turn to page 4, we have our property description. So the subject property is located on Enfield Crescent between its intersections with Bertrand Street and Goulet in the central St. Boniface area. The property is a 2.5-story apartment built in 1964, and the land size is approximately 12,000 square feet. The property has a total of 16 units, which includes 4 bachelors, 9 one-bedrooms, and 3 2-bedroom units. And there are 15 outdoor parking stalls noted. So we have an aerial view, and then on page 5, a Google map view. On page 8, we have an overview of our income approach. So the primary contention is on the cap rate. We are disputing the assessor's cap rate of 5.1%, and we're using a cap rate of 5.5%. 5.5 is our base cap rate based on this age category. We've not considered any adjustments. And considering it's kind of a mid-range property, we feel that this cap rate is pretty reasonable for this individual property. So on page 10, we have our income and expense breakdown. So we are using an effective gross rent of $142,798. When accounting for some of that miscellaneous income, we then get an effective gross income of $142,936. Our expenses include stabilized repair and maintenance at $1,312 per suite, for total expenses of $77,544. We have a net operating income of $65,391, and with our cap rate of 5.5%, gives us an indicated value of $1,189,000 rounded, which works out to a value of around $74,000 per unit. We didn't have all of the historical information for this property. So I've relied on the 2020 information that we did have. So our appendix starts on page 12, and we have some interior photos that were available. So you'll see the condition can probably be described as average at best. The units could definitely have some upgrades. And then we also have the city valuation and all the financial statements that we've looked at for this property. And our repair and maintenance can be found on page 25. Again, we didn't have all of the data, so it would be a 3-year average instead of a 5-year average. And that would conclude my presentation for this property. Thank you.
I thank you. Mr. Wong?
No questions.
Ms. Knight?
I saw an exterior picture somewhere, but oh, there it is. There we go. So on page 2, do you feel that those windows have been upgraded?
Yeah, it looks like the windows have probably been upgraded. I think the building has been likely maintained, but I would say the interiors are definitely a bit dated and quite basic.
Okay, and then when you on your page, why can I never find the page? Page 10, when you're giving you get to the effective gross income, but you don't have the potential rent and the vacancy. So what would do you have any idea? Is the vacancy higher perhaps here, lesser than the 2% that the city's using? Do you have any idea?
That's a good question. In terms of the way, so when we have all of the data to have the potential rents, the discounts, the vacancy, we like to have that. But sometimes the way they report their information, it makes more sense just to consider the vacancy as already included in the figure. So we're not really using any vacancy figure. We're just saying that these are the rents they're achieving. And yeah, just a comment on the vacancy. I know the city has 2% for this kind of area of St. Boniface. I would say that's a bit low, but in terms of this property, I would say it's a non-issue with the vacancy.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Just one question. Would you agree that the suite mix on this property, 4 bachelors, 9 1-bedrooms, and only 3 2-bedrooms would be an inferior mix?
Yeah, I would say it would be an inferior mix.
No further comment. Thank you.
I have a question, Madam Chair.
Yes, proceed, please.
So just looking at the 2017-2018 mailer, they report the expenses less than what the 2020 ones are. Now there's no mailer for 2020, but they just seem lower. Your expenses are based on the actuals that they provided in that financial statement for 2020.
Yeah, let me just check because yeah, so if you look on page, let me just look at it on page 20. If you look on page 20 and 21, that would be the income and expense information for 2020, and then I've included the rent roll as well to show the rental amount. So yeah, so we're going based on the actuals for the stabilized.
Right. So yeah, I'm just looking at the date. I guess the one mailer that caught my attention was the 2018 one, where they had a NOI of 79,768 and total expenses of 57. So it just seemed kind of inconsistent with the 2020 numbers. I know it's a different year, obviously there's differences, but they seem to make more money in 2018 based on the NOI, and the expenses were higher. Just a little confused, I guess, by that.
Yeah, no, that's a fair comment. I would comment that certain costs had gone up quite a bit in 2020 compared to previous years. So one of the major examples of that would be insurance. Kind of across the board when we're looking at the different multifamily properties, not just today, but in general, we've seen insurance costs go up substantially in 2020. So that's a factor, as well as certain other costs tend to continue to go up, such as utilities. So that would be, I guess, the best I could say for kind of differences in expenses for 2020.
Okay, thank you. No other questions.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I think I forgot to ask you, Ms. Duncan, if you had questions.
No worries. Thank you.
Apologize about that. Do either of you have a wish for a summation on this property?
No summation, just a comment. I was in looking at their 2017 mailer, it just sort of seems they've indicated, I guess, a 0% vacancy, just as a comment on the vacancy levels.
I don't need a summation, thank you.
All right, thank you. We will then proceed to 101 Marion Street. Mr. Wong, whenever we're ready.
Okay, the subject property is 101 Marion Street. The file number is 22-1582. The roll number is 060-907-80000. The roll year is 2023, and the assessed value is $14,466,000. This is a residential apartment block that's 16 stories high. It was built in 1973, and it has 210 units with 30 outdoor parking stalls. On page 3 is our income valuation summary. We used average rents of $702 to get a potential income of $1,769,000. We used a 2% vacancy to get an effective gross income of $1,733,000. And we used a 54% expense ratio to get a net operating income of $788,000. Capped at 5.45%, we have an estimated market value of $14,466,000. On page 4 are some rent comparables showing that the rents we've used are supported by the market and probably even lower than the market. On page 5 are the CMHC market rents. Using the CMHC market rents, their potential is $1,898,000, which supports the model's rent potential at $1,769,000. On the middle of page 5, there are some expense comparables that range from 43 to 50%. This supports the model's expense ratio at 54%. On page 6 and 7 is information on how we derived our cap rates, and some cap rate sales that range from 3.6% to 5.74%. And on page 9 is the mailer submitted by the owner. And on page 11 is the CMHC market rent chart. So, yeah, sorry, I guess I should have mentioned this at the beginning, but this is a Manitoba housing property, so we are valuing this as if it were a market value apartment building. The model rents and cap rate, or the model rents and cap rate, are supported by the market. The expenses are also supported by the market. So I ask that you maintain the assessed value at $14,466,000.
I thank you. Questions?
Just one, thank you. So on your income value summary on page 3, the vacancy is listed at 2%. Do you have anything in your brief to support that rate, such as from CMHC?
No, I do not.
Okay, thank you. That would conclude my questioning.
Thank you. Ms. Duncan, questions?
Just have you inspected the property or been in it?
I have not.
And so there's no exterior photos, no interior photos. How do you know what the condition of the property would be like inside?
Typically, it would be typically it would be hard for us to I guess, inspect all the properties that we have on a regular basis. So unfortunately, we make an assumption it is in a particular condition, but as we do inspect the properties, we do update the property record to reflect any changes in the condition of the property. If the property's been renovated, we would recognize that. If for instance, there was a property that was in a lot poorer condition than we had on record, we would update that as well. But we would do that on a as we encounter them basis. But outside of that, we rely on the current property record being accurate.
Because some of the other ones you've done some searching and presented out exterior photos and even some interiors. Did you do any online checks on this one?
I did not, and typically Manitoba Housing, they don't have any I guess photos available on the internet, and I'm actually not sure why I didn't put any like where the location was or an overview. I might have just missed it.
Okay. Okay, no other questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Knight?
The expense mailer, there's just the one,
Yes.
and she's giving you an average rent. Is that what she's saying? Or he or she is saying 100 and something, 150 bachelors or 180 bachelors? I'm not sure what that number is. Between 245 and 669 gives you those two numbers.
Yeah, I think it's 180 bachelors and 31 bedrooms, which totals 210, which is what we have on record. The rent, as far as I know, is geared towards income. So the rent for a bachelor could range from 245 to 669, and the rent for a one bedroom could range from 245 to 964.
So they're not giving you what their income actually is.
No,
Sorry,
no.
excuse
No.
me, lost a panel member's, she's back.
And
Can't
she's
hear you,
talking, but we
Michelle.
can't hear her.
Muted.
Oh,
She's- Oh,
I'm still here. I was just off camera for a minute,
all right.
but I'm here.
All right, thank you. Sorry, if you'd like to proceed.
Yeah, they basically, I guess Manitoba Housing didn't provide any income and expense information, and I guess all they provided was the number of suites along with what the range of rents that they are charging.
okay. And Manitoba Housing is all based on income, correct?
Yes, for residential properties, for residential Manitoba Housing properties, it is income.
Okay. So when it's based on income, does that mean the province subsidizes the difference to make it the average monthly rent?
I think they do subsidize. Yeah, I think most of the time, yes, they subsidize it so that it is able to operate as if it were a market apartment building. So
Okay.
I think if you look at their rent, for a bachelor is indicating I think the 669 would be their indicated market rent, and so if they would cover the difference between the $245 that they were getting to 69.
Okay, so that's what that means. They're getting $245, but the rent that's actually being paid to the owner is the tenant is paying $245, but the rent to the owner is actually receiving $669. Is that what that would mean?
No, I think that's just saying what the range is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, because it's rent geared towards income, that number could vary depending on your income, and so I think it's just giving a range. It's not telling us what they're actually getting.
So it's not really telling us anything other than the maximum rent that they could be charging on those suites.
Yeah, but it looks
so at the maximum rent, then, if I'm reading this right, the bachelors are $1,445,000 and the one bedrooms are $347,040.
Yeah, it looks like from what I can tell, the 669 for the bachelor and the 964 for a one bedroom would be kind of very in line with a market rent.
Okay, and so then when we go back to your suite allocation, you have a 1-2 bedroom on there, but they don't have a 2 bedroom. So is there a 2 bedroom in this property?
I guess according to our property record, it does have 1 2-bedroom, but in order for, I guess, for me to know for sure, I would probably need to inspect the property or call the property manager to verify.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Duncan? Did I ask you, do you have any questions?
No questions. I asked it.
So, Mr. Wong, do you know when this property was last inspected by the city?
I do not know when it was last. Oh,
Okay,
in 2008.
2008.
Yeah. They had a permit to replace so the windows, and so yeah, there was a $850,000 permit for replacing the windows, and that was done in 2008.
All right, I thank you. Now, this is a 10-story building, correct?
16.
16-story, excuse me. 16-story building.
And actually, sorry, it was actually last inspected in 2014. Sorry.
Do you have any notes on the condition?
No, just the permit that was for replacing the windows.
All right, thank you. So this is a 16-story building, correct?
Yes.
And there are 210 suites.
Yes.
With a mix of 179 bachelor and 31 bedrooms, correct?
Yes.
And the 2-bedroom is an unknown. So again, would an investor not see this as an inferior building? And then added on top of that is only 30 parking spaces for 210 suites?
I'm not sure if I've heard of anybody looking at it from that standpoint. I think if you look at the bachelors, you look at what a bachelor could get you in terms of income, and I think that one might look at it that way. I don't know if I've ever seen a building not sell because there were a lot of bachelor. There's a high bachelor ratio, or I'm not sure how a investor would look at it from that standpoint. I can only speculate that they would determine what a bachelor could get them in terms of rent, and that's how I think they would look at it. But I'm not sure. I haven't really talked with anybody who was buying an apartment building.
All right, thank you. That's all my questions. Kate, if you'd like to proceed with your brief.
Thank you. So if you turn to page 2, we have our requested assessment of $12,990,000. On page 4, we have our property description. So the subject property is located on Marion Street at its intersections with Goulet and Taché in the central St. Boniface area. The property is a 16-story apartment built in 1973. And the parcel is irregularly shaped, and the site size is approximately 1.1 acres, and it has 2 zoning codes. We also have noted the property as 210 units with the same suite mix as the assessor, so I won't go through that again. And there are 30 outdoor parking stalls noted, so you'll see a photo of the parcel and a Google map view. On page 8, we have the overview of our income approach. So similar to the other social housing property we had, they don't achieve market rents. So we are using the rents of the city of $702.09 per suite per month, since they are a factor of CMHC rents. In terms of the vacancy, we're going to dispute the 2% that is below what CMHC suggests. And so what I've done is I've looked to the CMHC 2020 data, and by zone of St. Boniface and the suite mix of this particular property, I've recalculated the vacancy rate to 3.18%. And we'll similarly apply our market expense ratio of 54.5% as assessed. If you turn to page 9, we have the overview of our cap rate. So we are disputing the cap rate of 5.45%, and we're going to use a cap rate of 6% based on our study. So the base cap rate is 5.5%, and we're going to be doing an adjustment given that it's social housing, has low income tenancy. And additionally, since it is seniors housing and it has those similar issues that we've discussed previously in the docket, poor parking, only 0.14 stalls per unit, poor suite mix, mostly predominantly bachelors and 1 bedrooms. And additionally, the suites are on the smaller end, 350 square feet for a bachelor, 580 square feet for a 1 bedroom. So we feel that 0.5% adjustment does make sense. So 6% is reasonable for this property. So if you turn to page 11, we have the breakdown of just how all those parameters fit in. So with our net operating income of $779,417 and a 6% cap rate, we get an indicated value of $12,990,000 rounded, which works out to approximately $62,000 per unit. And that would conclude my presentation on this property. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions, Mr. Wong?
No questions.
And Ms. Duncan, questions?
Is it safe to say as well, you wouldn't be familiar with the quality of the building in the outside and inside as far as condition?
I haven't inspected the building in order to comment on condition, so I've not made an adjustment for condition either in cap rate just based on that. But what we know about social housing and seniors housing, we can make some inferences regarding condition, but I've not made any type of specific condition adjustment.
Okay, thank you. No other question.
Thank you. Ms. Knight, questions?
So on your page 8, when you're recalculating the vacancy rate, are you taking into effect that 2-bedroom rate is coming up with a 2.1 or 1.9, but in this unit, the owner says they don't have a 2-bedroom. Even then, if there was, according to the city's assessment and your presentation, there's only one of those 2-bedroom suites. Does that make a difference in this account? Kicking into that 2.6% for that?
Yeah, so in terms of just breaking down this table a bit more, so CMHC breaks out their data into various categories. I've chosen to go with the by location and then by suite mix. So what CMHC is suggesting for the totals for the area, they're saying 2.5 or 2.6, but when we actually look at bachelors and 1 bedrooms, for the 2020 data, they're suggesting a higher vacancy rate. So yes, having the 2-bedroom in that calculation would make a slight difference, I guess, to bring down the vacancy. But given that it's only 1 2-bedroom, even if we got rid of that, the vacancy I've recalculated would still be supported. If anything, it would be maybe a touch higher. So yes, the suite mix would make a difference to the vacancy.
Right. Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you. And I have no questions for you. Thank you. Do either of you have a wish for a summation on this property?
No, thank you.
I'm good.
All right, thank you. We'll proceed to 389 Uville. Mr. Wong, whenever you are ready to proceed.
Okay, the subject property is 389 Uville Street. The file number is 22-2451. The roll number is 060-612-28000. The roll year is 2023, and the assessed value is $1,598,000. This is a residential apartment that's 3 stories high. It was built in 2015, and it has 6 suites with 9 outdoor parking stalls. On page 3 is our income valuation summary. We use average rents of $1,464 to get a potential income of $105,000. We used a 2% vacancy to get an effective gross income of $103,000, and we used a 38% expense ratio to get a net operating income of $63,000. capped at 4%, who have an estimated market value of $1,598,000. On page 4 are some rent comparables showing that the rents we've used are in line with what's in the market. On page 5 is a summary of the income and expenses. Their income and expenses were on the higher side, or sorry, no, they weren't on the higher side. They were on the low side actually, and they didn't really have much in terms of repair and maintenance. So taking a market level of repair and maintenance of $1,201 per unit, I added that to their expenses. So for 2020, their income was $105,000. Their expenses were only $11,000, but after adding in the repair and maintenance of $7,208 and adding in the property taxes at $16,965, their operating expenses are $35,677, giving a net operating income of $69,000. This supports the model's net operating income at $63,000. On page 6 and 7 is information on how we derived our cap rates, with some cap rate sales that range from 3.6 to 5.74%. The remainder of my brief is the income statement supplied by the owner. So to conclude, the model rent and cap rate are supported by the market, and their actual NOI is a little bit higher than what the model's estimated. So I ask that you maintain the assessed value at $1,598,000.
I thank you, Mr. Wong. Questions, Ms. Cates?
Yes, thank you. So if we turn to your income value summary on page 3, looking at your cap rate, would you agree that a 4% cap rate is very low?
It is on the lower end of the range, but it is in line with what I've seen in terms of cap rate sales. So I feel it is fair.
And it would be lower than the broker's ranges, is that correct?
Yes, in like compared to CBRE or Colliers, yes.
And then it would also be lower than the city's 20th percentile, is that correct?
This 4% falls in the lowest 20th percentile in terms of our cap rates.
But to clarify, it's below the 20th percentile, correct? It's below 4.8?
Yes, it is.
Okay, and then the market value per suite at $266,000 roughly, does that not seem high to you?
That is on the higher end of the range, but it is definitely supported by a couple sales that I've seen.
Do you have those sales included in your brief?
I do not.
Okay, thank you. That would conclude my questions.
Thank you. Ms. Duncan, did you have any questions to the assessor?
I guess it'd be similar to the last one. Obviously, you don't have any photos of the inside or outside. It's a newer build. You don't know potentially what the condition is, or have you seen it?
I didn't include the, I guess, a map or the overview photo, but I was actually the one that inspected the property and put it onto the assessment roll back in 2015. So I guess I saw the property at that time.
Okay. And what types of amenities did you note it had?
They were, I don't believe it had any amenities. The units were fully self-contained.
So like they would have in-suite laundry, three appliances or just 2 appliances?
Yes. And this was built in 2015, and as far as I know, it is well managed. So I would just assume that it's in normal condition for a 2015 build.
But you don't know what's in the suite as far as whether or not there's additional appliances over a fridge and a stove, or as far as
it would just be it would be like fridge stove, laundry.
Okay. Okay, no other questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Knight, questions?
So just to confirm, no pictures, no, we don't know a whole lot other than you went in there and inspected it yourself. Is that correct?
Yes, I did not include it in this brief.
Okay, and then the finishings in the kitchen, were they laminate or is it something better than laminate or what's do you know the flooring? Do you know anything? Can you introduce any of that?
I unfortunately I cannot.
Okay, thank you.
And I have no questions. If you'd like to proceed, Ms. Keyes.
Thank you. So if you turn to page 2, you'll see our requested assessment of $1,227,000. On page 4, we have our property description. So the subject property is located on Viewville Street at its intersection with Bertrand in the central St. Boniface area. The property is a 3-story apartment built in 2015, and the land size is approximately 8,500 square feet. The property has 6 units, which are all 2 bedrooms, and there are 9 outdoor parking stalls noted. So you'll see an aerial view and a Google map view on the following page. On page 8, we have an overview of our income approach. So the contention on this one is with the cap rate. We are disputing the assessor's cap rate of 4%, and we're using a cap rate of 5.2% based on our cap rate study. The base cap rate would be 5.25%, and we have not made any adjustments given that it is a newer build. It has some amenities, including balconies. The suites are fairly modern. And being 2 bedrooms is a good suite mix. What I would note is that in terms of the number of suites, we discussed in our cap rate studies that low number of suites can be a risk factor in terms of it's harder to maintain a market vacancy with just 6 suites. If even one of those units was to be vacant for some time, they would not be achieving a market vacancy of 3 to 4%. And additionally, then there's less units to kind of spread out those expenses over. So if you turn to page 9, we have our income and expense breakdown. So we note rents of $104,209. We have included the vacancy into that calculation already, so we've not included an additional figure for vacancy. And so our effective gross income is $104,259. Now, due to kind of what looks like incomplete expense data, we have gone to look at a market expense ratio, and we note across other newer properties that something in the high 30s does make sense. So we have used the 38.2% of the city's valuation as well here, given that an 11% expense ratio is not realistic. So our net operating income is $64,432, and with our 5.25% cap rate, gives us an indicated value of $1,227,000 rounded, which works out to a value of $204,500 per unit, which I would suggest is more than reasonable and probably on the high end still. So our appendix starts on page 11, and I've included the financial statements that we've looked at. Unfortunately, there was no interior photos available to attach. I find often with this particular property manager, they'll just have photos if they currently have a unit available. So I wasn't able to provide any photos here. And that would conclude my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Wong, questions?
No questions.
Thank you. Ms. Duncan, questions?
No questions. Thank you.
And Ms. Knight?
No questions, thank you.
I have no questions to you, Ms. Cates, but Mr. Wong, I just want to redirect to you. Because this is a 2015 build, do you have any building permits on this property?
I don't have any permits in front of me.
All right, I thank you. Do either of you have a wish for a summation on this property?
No, thank you.
All right, we will then move on to our last property at 287 Promontory Boulevard. And Mr. Wong, whenever you're ready to proceed.
Okay, the subject property is 287 Provencher Boulevard. The file number is 22-1571. The roll number is 060-610-03000. The roll year is 2023, and the assessed value is $916,000. This is a residential apartment that's 2 stories high. It was built in 1946, and it has 11 suites with 4 outdoor parking stalls. On page 3 is a picture of the subject property with its location. On page 4 is our income valuation summary. We use average rents of $724 to get a potential income of $95,000. We used a 2% vacancy to get an effective gross income of $93,000. And we used a 50% expense ratio to get a net operating income of $46,000. Capped at 5.1%, we have an estimated market value of $916,000. On page 5 are some rent comparables showing that the rents we've used are in line with what's in the market. On page 6 is a summary of the income and expenses submitted by the owner. For 2020, their net operating income was $50,000. This supports the model's net operating income, which is at $46,000. On page 7 and 8 is information on how we derived our cap rates with some cap rate sales that range from 3.6 to 5.74%. The remainder of my brief is the income statement supplied by the property owner. But to conclude, the model rent and cap rate that we have are supported by the market, and their actual net operating income supports the model's net operating income. So I ask that you maintain the assessed value at $916,000.
Thank you. Questions, Ms. Cates?
No, thank you.
And Ms. Duncan, questions?
No questions, thank you.
And Ms. Knight?
So again, no pictures other than the exterior picture, which still looks like it has, I can't tell if that's older windows or newer windows on there, but not much done. Is that correct?
That is all the, I guess, photos that, yeah, that's all the photos I have.
Okay, and they're all 1-bedroom suites, no anything else?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Wong, on page 1 of your brief, this building has an actual year of 1946 and an effective year of 1946.
Yes.
Can you speak to that?
Typically, they'll be the same unless we've inspected the property and determined that an effective year build change is warranted. But there are some times where properties get renovated and we haven't inspected it, so that does happen sometimes. But typically, we only have an effective year built adjustment if there has been renovations or improvements done to the property.
Okay, so and no disrespect, but are you telling me then this property hasn't been inspected for 70 odd years?
I'm not sure when was the last time it was inspected.
Okay, and your brief is model driven, correct?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, but the model has given this a 5.10 cap rate on a 1946 building.
Yes. If you go to my page 8, there are say 203 Bertrand is a 1963 building, and we have a cap rate of 4.77%.
And can you speak to that sale?
Aside that my colleague had reviewed and stabilized the income and expenses to calculate that, nothing anymore besides that.
All right, I thank you. That's all my questions.
Sorry, can I ask one further question?
Yes, go ahead.
So then if you're stating that 1963 has a 4.77, you're also stating that the Corridon property, which is 1955, has a 5.74. Is that right?
Yes. Yes, and I guess those sales, they're in there to basically give you examples of some cap rate sales and to substantiate some of the model cap rates that are being presented.
So if you have this here sitting in front of you, you've got 11 suites in this building.
Yes.
This 1955 has 16 suites and 1963 has 9 suites. And so you're still going to stick with your 5.1 cap rate? Based on your evidence?
I think the 4.77 substantiates the 5.1.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Cates, if you'd like to proceed.
Thank you. So if you turn to page 2, you'll see our requested assessment of $838,000. We have a property description on page 4. So the subject property is located on Provencher between its intersections with Langevin and St. John Baptiste Street in North St. Boniface. It's 2.5 stories, built in 1946, with a land area of approximately 6,100 square feet. There are 11 units, which are all 1 bedrooms, and there are 4 outdoor parking stalls noted. So you'll see the aerial view and Google map view. So if you turn to page 8, we have the overview. So we are using a 5.75% cap rate based on our cap rate study. That is the base cap rate for a property of this age. And we've not made any other adjustments. The property is wood frame. The structure is wood frame from the 40s. So even if an effective age was given based on potentially the interiors at some point, I mean, the foundation, the key elements of the building are from the 1940s. As well, we note no real amenities, kind of deficient in parking, and potentially not a great suite mix at all 1 bedrooms. So we feel 5.75 is reasonable for this property, especially given that the brokers indicate a range between 5 and 6 for low rise, and we're still well within that range. So if you turn to page 9, we have our income and expense breakdown. So at the time of working on this property, it didn't have access to the 2020 data. So I used the 2019 income as a proxy for the 2020, and following submission, being able to look at the 2020, they are quite similar. So I feel comfortable with that level of income. Additionally, in terms of the expenses, there's kind of some inconsistency in the reporting of those expenses. So we used a level that was looked at previously for this property at 45% expense ratio. So it's really just cap rate 5.75 gives us an indicated value of $838,000, which works out to approximately $76,000 per unit. And then the remainder of the brief, I just included the financial statements looked at, as well as the repair and maintenance that we've looked at on page 18. And that would conclude my presentation on this property. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Wong, any questions?
No questions.
Thank you. Ms. Duncan, questions?
No questions, thank you.
And Ms. Knight?
No, I'm good, thanks.
Just one question. Did you obtain any pictures?
I did not.
Did you speak to the property manager in regards to condition?
I did not reach out in regards to condition. So I've not made any type of adjustment for condition due to that.
All right. Thank you. Do either of you have a wish for a summation on this property?
No, thank you.
I'm good, thank you.
All right. We have heard all the items on the docket today, and this hearing is adjourned.
Thank you. Have a good day.
I would like to thank you, Mr. Wong, for your time and presentations, and also to you, Ms. Cates. Thank you. Thank you.